touchdown.
These decisions are more crucial than ever. For 65 young men, the tension is high. They have done the work. Will one of them be the answer your team is looking for? The Red Blacks are on the clock. The 2014 CFL Canadian Draft next. Okay, they were on the clock, no longer on the clock, because in the last hour there has been a trade already. Welcome, everyone, to the 2014 CFL Draft. I'm Rod Black, along with Dwayne Fort, Paul Lapalisse, Chris Schultz. It did not take long, fellows. Already, the Ottawa Red Blacks were going to make their first ever historical draft pick, #1 overall. But then they made a trade with the Calgary Stampeders.
Yeah, and this is something that had been rumored a little bit. Ottawa looking to move that pick. Veteran offensive lineman, center and guard John Gott, goes to the Ottawa Red Blacks in exchange not only for the first overall pick, but in exchange for the playing rights to the recently retired Marwan Hage. And Schultz, I look at this and I think Ottawa would be dying to make the first overall pick, but it doesn't seem like that steep a price to pay.
You know, not really. When you initially look at this from the outside looking in, you're saying, Ottawa, what are you doing? You're trading away your youth. You're trading away maybe the best Canadian college football player available. But understand this about the draft. The majority of these teams are going to take the best player available. And the majority of these teams are going to look for great depth. Not with these Red Blacks. They need to find starters. And you see that number right there, 63? He is a guy that has shown durability, John Gott. He is a starter. He can play 18 games, and he has the toughness to do it. So I think it's a good move. On the outside looking in, it seems...
Schultze, I like the pick because this is a win-now business, guys. You have to win now. If you look at Ottawa right now, has Matt Albright, Anthony Barrett, Brendan Dunn, and Alexander Krosnick. Those are all guys that are unproven but good players, where now they get John Gott, who's been in Mike Gibson's system, been with, you know, the Rick Campbell crew, that group of guys. So they've got a great feel of, this is the type of guy we want in our system. What does Calgary get? Coach Huffnagel, you know, gets the best young player in the draft. He moves up in the draft to get a physical football player. He's going to take one of those early guys, I bet, at offensive line. Again, he did the same thing, guys, in 2008. He picked up Jesse Newman and Dimitri Sumpas, and he went to the Grey Cup that year. So I think it's a good trade for both sides.
And remember what happened with the Ottawa Renegades a few years ago. They don't want to see that repeat performance in Ottawa. So the Red Blacks are not picking #1 anymore. The Calgary Stampeders will. And so here we go. The CFL Draft already underway with some excitement. And speaking of which, the commissioner is in the house, Mark Cohan, and he is with our Farhan Lalji.
Thanks, Rod. Now, Mark, earlier today there was a report about the possibility of the CFLPA and its players taking a strike vote. What can you tell us about the latest in negotiations and what you're expecting when you meet with the players next?
Well, we're meeting with the players later this week on Thursday and Friday, and what we want to do is we want to negotiate and get to a fair deal for the players and the right deal for our league, and that's what we're hopefully going to get to.
Now, when the fans hear about strikes and strike votes, they get a little nervous. As the commissioner, are you concerned?
Well, I'm not naive to think that the players aren't serious, and I think they are serious. And we take this type of conversation very seriously. But at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for this league. And what we hope is right is getting the players back on the field at preseason and regular season and getting a deal that's done. Both for the good of the players and the good of our teams.
Now, some more positive news, or at least interesting news, earlier in the week when the CFL decided it's going to add video review to pass interference calls. Now, on some levels, this is exciting, this is cutting edge, but on others, fans might be concerned about Pandora's box being opened and games being lengthened. What can you say to alleviate those concerns?
Well, I will tell you, it's creating a lot of interest. We've gotten calls from the NHL, the NFL, all the other leagues saying, this is really interesting what you're doing. I don't think it's going to lengthen games because the coaches still have the same number of challenge that is often in football the most controversial is pass interference. We'll get it right.
Now, the Ottawa Red Blacks have already made some news. This is a big day for them. They've made the trade at the top of the draft. How important is it that the Red Blacks have success in year one?
You know, I think it's very important for us. You know, we said the expansion draft. You look at the quarterbacks they have, some of the best quarterbacks in this league, those 3 quarterbacks they have on that team. So the expansion draft was good for them. We think, you know, this Canadian draft will be very good for them. We're excited to see what they're like at the start of the season.
And now you've got some advice for the Calgary Stampeders.
I do. Calgary Stampeders, you are now on the clock.
Yes, they are. John Huffnagel and company in Calgary. They have 2 picks in the first round now, again making the trade with Ottawa. Keep in mind there are 7 rounds, 65 players taken. We will have first round coverage here on TSN for the first hour and then over on tsn.ca for the rest of the CFL draft. So the Bombers, Edmonton, and the rest of the Canadian Football League in this first round getting ready. There's Huff talking it over, just making a deal. He will select #1 overall when we come back to the 2014 CFL Draft.
To all our challengers from across this country, to all those who have written us off, this is our war. We are giving everything we have. We will never give up. We will never give in. We are Manitoba strong. We are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
These aren't just tickets to some skinny jeans boy band.
These are the doors to paradise. And you are no longer ordinary parents. You are superheroes.
How do we know? Because every year we've thrilled card members with millions of the hottest tickets in town.
We even arranged for a select few to meet their idols. Tears of joy and pounding hearts. Just part of the rock and roll service we deliver
daily. American Express. Realize the potential.
Yes! Woo! Yes! Yes! That is so romantic!
I guess. But it's not proposal of the year.
TSN Play of the Year presented by Klondike. Nothing is bigger.
It's the designer wardrobe sale at Moore's. Get 50% off suits, sport coats, dress shirts, and
slacks from Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. And buy one, get one free on almost everything else in the store. The designer wardrobe sale ends May 18th at Moore's.
Tailored for Canada, tailored for you.
Moments away from the Calgary Stampeders selecting #1 overall for the first time since 2005 when they selected Miguel Robade. They will make a selection. Dwayne Ford, what do you think?
Well, I tend to think that the Calgary Stampeders are going to go offensive line. If you're willing to pay a price to move up to the top of this particular draft, the best players in this draft are offensive linemen. You look at guys like Pierre Lavertu, center from Laval, 3-time All-Canadian. Matthias Gossen from Simon Fraser University, a guy who's been a 3-time conference All-Star in the Great Northwest Athletic Conference. These are the best players in this draft. These are the guys that people were competing to get to the top of the draft in order to acquire.
We should talk about Laurent Duvernay-Tardif because he is by far the #1.
On so many bureaus, on your list as well, but not going to be selected #1.
No, he's the best player, but a 6th-round draft choice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be at least a couple years from the CFL, quite frankly, maybe never.
Maybe never, because he's got a lot going on in his life. I mean, he's going after a medical degree. He's going after his bigger, better picture in his mind in the National Football League, and he may have this option. But here's the thing about Calgary, is this isn't an urgency pick. This is a pick that they will take as a player that needs to develop. Remember, Calgary was #1 in the league in terms of points scored, #2 in fewest points scored. It's a team that has developed in all different phases, all the statistical categories. What they didn't do was show up and play their best football in the playoffs. But whoever they take, it's a luxury pick that they're going to develop. And as a coach, that's perfect.
Here's what I love about Calgary's offense, defense as a head coach. You've got the opportunity when John Cornish starts you as a non-import and you start 4 Canadian offensive linemen, you start 1 Canadian receiver, you don't have to start 1 on defense. So they've got a great, they've got one of the best tailbacks in the league, and he's also a non-import guy. So that frees up a lot of opportunity for you to start another guy, you know, have another American starter at another spot.
They've also got Brett
Jones at center, who was the outstanding rookie last year, late 2nd-round pick, but they still might go after Pierre Lavertu. Let's talk about your top 10 going into this draft.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, Rod, I think that the top guys in this draft, offensive linemen, you see Duvernay-Tardif at the top. He is the best player. David Foucault, 6'7", 320-pound offensive tackle from the Montreal Carabins. Another guy who projects to be an offensive tackle. A little more of a work in progress. You look at 3 and 4, it's the guys who are most pro-ready. And Matthias Gossen, Pierre Lavertu, 2 inside players. Teams look at those guys and see maybe players in the mold of Brett Jones who might be able to play as centers, possibly guards, right away in the CFL.
Let's go over to Farhan Lalji once again.
Thanks, Rod. And I'm joined by Lee Barrett from Canada Football Chat, who'll be joining us throughout these draft proceedings. And Lee, you've had a chance to watch these players for a number of years. A lot of options right now for Calgary. Who do you like?
Well, the guy I like the most is Pierre Laver, too. He's played the most meaningful reps of any player in amateur football the last 7 years. He's played in 5 championship games, 4 Vanier Cups with the Laval Rouge et Or, and 1 Bull d'Or with FX Garneau.
Had some great coaches during that time with Carl Brennan and Alan Mangui, but the player's done a lot himself. He's maximized his potential. He's gotten the weight room.
He's a leader, calls all the line, calls on the offensive line at the center position for 7 straight years. He's my pick, but 2 other guys that I like, Antoine Pruneau,
University of Montreal, and Montmorency CEGEP. He's Mr. Versatility. He's everything. He's a guy, you want a weak corner, they put him there. You want a stand linebacker,
blitz the quarterback, he's your guy. And he played it with under Noel Thorpe's system for 2 years. And then the guy with maybe the highest ceiling, David Foucault from the University of Montreal, 6'8", 320 pounds, and he can move. The thing that he has to get caught up on is his football ability. He's only been playing no line for 3 years. He was a 3-time CEGEP defensive lineman all-star with Edouard Montpetit, but he's the guy maybe with the most ceiling and might be the guy they pick.
Lots of options for Calgary, and Rod, it looks like they're about ready to make that pick.
Yeah, they are. You know, keep in mind, this is the dream day for so many young football players. This is it, the chance to get drafted by a Canadian Football League team. Of course, you still have to make that team. Training camp around the corner, but we're about ready now with the Calgary Stampeders after acquiring
the pick from the Ottawa Red Blacks. Here is the commissioner, Mark Cohon.
Thanks, Rod. What a fun start to the CFL season, the CFL Draft. Now, with the first pick in the 2014 CFL Canadian Draft, the Calgary Stampeders select Pierre Lavertu from Laval University, offensive lineman.
Pierre Lavertu, the first center since Chad Folk back in 97? 1997 to be selected #1 overall. You're not surprised, Dwayne Ford?
No, not at all. This is the most pro-ready player in this draft. You heard Lee talk about the reps that he's had over the course of the last 7 years, the coaching that he has had through the CEGEP and CIS levels. He's been a 3-time All-Canadian, first-team All-Conference in a very tough Quebec conference over the course of his career. Strong, quick, plays low, great technique. This is a guy who's as much of a plug-and-play player as there is in this draft, going to a team that doesn't necessarily have to plug and play him.
No, not a team that necessarily has to find a player that can start instantaneously, but a team that can develop them, because the most important players on your team often are your 6th offensive lineman, your 5th defensive lineman, because the one guarantee you have in football is injuries. Injuries are going to happen in this game. You're going to get hurt. So when you have a player of this ability, that in July and August, by September, he could be a starter. And if he is a starter, then you've nailed it. Then you've made a great pick.
He's certainly got the pedigree. He's got the coaching. He's got the strength of a guy who can step in and be the sixth player right now, guys. You know what he has the most of anybody I watched in the draft? He's got the most roaches. Okay, you don't know what a roach is? A roach is when you take a guy and you drop the guy on the ground, and the guy trying to block him is on the ground.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Guy, no, the roaches, because the guy's up here. So he's got more roaches than anyone. This is a physical kid who plays with a whistle. I think he'll fit right in. He'll do a good job.
Well, he is amongst
brethren at Laval and alumni that have been selected so many times. 34 Laval players over the last few years have been selected. It's a tribute to Glenn Constantin and that terrific program, the Laval Rouge et Or. So the Calgary Stampeders select Pierre Lavertu
from Laval. He is their #1 pick, the #1 pick in 2014.
Winnipeg Blue Bombers, you are on the clock. Enoch Mwamba has gone to the NFL. Jade Etienne is gone, so they have some hope openings as well. We'll see when we come back to the CFL Draft.
Eskimos season tickets are now on sale. Catch all the action for as little as $1.99. .com or call 448-ESKS today.
Steel.
Still.
Steel.
No matter how you say it, Steel makes yard work quick and easy, with blowers starting at $179.95. Grass trimmers $130 Depot, not at Canadian Tire. Visit your local Steel dealer for expert advice, on-site service, and Canada's #1 selling brand of outdoor power equipment. Find yours at steel.ca.
How do you get your bounce? Well, did you know that just 1 sheet of Bounce Outdoor Fresh gives you more freshness than 2 sheets of the leading national store brand? Who knew? So how do you get your bounce? With more freshness in a single sheet.
You ready to change the world?
I'm ready to kick some ass.
Tonight,
Shield fights back in the season finale you've been waiting for.
I have a weapon.
Their survival requires a special Marvel guest star.
Fury always said, man can accomplish anything when he realizes he's a part of something bigger. Bring the house down.
Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the season finale. Tonight at 8, 7 Central on CTV.
With the first pick of the 2014 CFL Draft, the Calgary Stampeders select player number 219, Pierre Lavertu, offensive lineman, Laval.
That was John Hufnagel moments ago. Pierre Lavertu is now a member of the Calgary Stampeders. Now drafting number 2, the team with the worst record in the CFL last year. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who have made a ton of changes, including head coach Mike O'Shea coming in. 3-15 season last year. Clearly a lot of openings and still hope in Winnipeg. You know they have a tremendous fan base. Lapo, you know that as well as anyone. What up with the Bombers?
Well, their general manager, Kyle Walters, has been very outspoken leading up to the draft about the fact that they need a center. They've had holes on their offensive line for years. You got to believe that's the direction they're going, and it fits with the best guys on the board.
I think they need a lot. The only two things that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers did well was their red zone offense and their red zone defense. You look at every other statistical category, they were 8th, 7th, 6th in the entire league. As important as it is for the Red Blacks to continue to develop their Canadian talent, the second team that has to develop their Canadian talent are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They got to nail this one. Absolutely nail it.
And you certainly don't give away Canadian free agent offensive linemen. They released Justin Sorensen, guys. That made them think that there's some guys in the draft that they like. So I think the writing was on the wall when they let Justin Sorensen go to free agency.
You have the pick. I get to play commissioner here. The second
offensive lineman, Matthias Gosson, from Simon Fraser University, is now a member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Keep in mind now, he hasn't been playing a yard off the ball.
Well, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period for him, having played high school in the province of BC, where they play American rules, and obviously playing at Simon Fraser, which plays American rules. So there will be that adjustment for him in terms of having a man a yard off the ball affects that timing and so on. But in terms of resume, this is a guy who's a lot like Pierre Lavertu, very close to being ready to play. He's been a 4-year starter at Simon Fraser, 3 years as an all-conference guy. Good technique again, high football IQ. He's played all 5 positions on the offensive line. This is a guy who's going to be ready to go and make a contribution as a rookie.
You know what, Dwayne, you know what I love about it is it's not a reach. It's a guy that you can put in and he's going to play some football. And you mentioned the yard off the ball. That is an adjustment. There's no doubt about it. Because with that yard, the defensive lineman actually has the advantage in terms of being able to read the keys from the center against the run. And then against the pass, you have to have a certain level of patience in order to wait until you jam with your hands. So how well he adjusts to that yard off the ball is very important. But they do have a good offensive line coach in Bob Wiley, who has experience in taking players from this level and creating good offensive linemen. I like it because it's fundamentally sound.
Yeah, and Bob Wiley was there in 2008 when Brendan Labatt became a starter. You know, I worked with Bob in Saskatchewan. The thing that I like about Gosson, 2 things. First and foremost, his lower body. He can bend his knees, which you have to do to get underneath people as offensive linemen, and his feet kept moving on contact on every film I watched. He did a great job of that. The second thing, when you grade offensive linemen, guys, you want to know at the end of the play, are they around the football? And this kid is an effort kid. He is around the ball the whole time. Every film I broke down, this kid plays with great effort around the football.
Dwayne, shotgun skills. Is he good with shotgun skills?
He'll get to be in a hurry, that's for sure. He's played a little bit of center. Yeah. He'll be ready.
And the nice thing about being off the ball, like the center, you know, he's not going to be as covered as much, so he can have some time.
Winnipeg Blue Bombers have selected Matthias Gosson as the 2nd overall pick in the 2014 CFL Draft. Now it's the Edmonton Eskimos' turn. When we come back, they are now on the clock. The Eskimos have some holes to fill as well. Big season coming up for Ed Hervey and the Eskimos. They will draft next as our coverage continues.
Is it true Ciroc makes the best flavors in the world? Take one sip of the lush wildness of Ciroc Red Berry. One taste of the intense ripeness of Ciroc Peach. Even one drop of the explosive freshness of Ciroc Coconut. And the truth will come to your lips. Ciroc Ultra Premium flavors. One sip is all it takes to taste true perfection. Available in Red Berry, Coconut, and Peach. Ciroc, nothing tastes better than the truth.
Edmonton, you're on the clock right now. 3rd overall selection, and here is what they have, and what they need is what, Mr. Ford?
Well, overall, the Edmonton Eskimos need an upgrade of their Canadian talent. They're a team that can consider the possibility of taking the best overall player in this draft.
We understand they have made a trade in Edmonton. We're just trying to get details. This is the way it works here, Schultz. You love this.
I like this.
Thanks.
I like living spontaneously.
So we're going to find out in a moment.
Structured. I like it when you just react.
What do you, like, Dwayne, you're so tapped into this stuff. It looks like it's between Toronto and Edmonton right now. We'll try to get more details. So Toronto will get this selection, it looks like. Does this surprise you right now?
Nothing surprises me in the first round of the Canadian Football League draft. I'd be surprised if there weren't trades happening at this point.
Yeah, and what you're trying to do right now is obviously whoever's trading up sees a player that's still, it's early, but still one of their top guys on the board. They're saying, hey, can we get up here and get this guy? We didn't think he'd be here. You know, it's only a 3rd pick. It's surprising, but, you know, certainly there's somebody they really like.
We talked about Ottawa earlier, too, and the fact that they got a lot of quarterbacks there with Henry Burris and Kevin Glenn, and the fact that Kevin Glenn doesn't want to play there now. And we hear rumors about Kevin Glenn right now being traded possibly to BC.
Kevin Glenn, you know, probably the most undervalued quarterback in the entire league. Now, if I was Kevin Glenn, would I be offended because Henry Burris is on the football team? No, it's open up to competition. And I think, you know, you go through that first period where you're upset about it, but eventually you come back and you say you're going to compete for a job. So I'd be surprised if Kevin Glenn was not a Red-Black.
Okay, we do have word that Toronto will select now. We don't have details of the trade with Edmonton. Toronto was supposed to select 6th overall. They select 3rd overall, and they have taken running back Anthony Coombs from the University of Manitoba.
Well, and a great pick for the Toronto Argonauts, because what they see is a guy who fits the mold of Andre Dury. One of the things that stands out to me about Anthony Coombs, aside from his physical skills, lightning quick, one of the fastest players in the draft, very productive performer, this is a versatile player. This is a guy who's one of the top running backs and top rushers in CIS football. Last season, 4 games of over 100 yards rushing. He also had 3 games of over 100 yards receiving. He is also one of the best receivers in this draft. So I think the Toronto Argonauts see a guy who they can fit into the mold of Andre Dury, because we know their whole offense changes if Andre Dury goes down, because they didn't have a guy to replace him before.
I remember the days, because I'm a little older and you, a little older and you, a little older and you, believe it or not.
A lot older.
And there was a time where if you had a Canadian college running back, it wasn't taken seriously. And then you saw the John Cornishes, and you saw the Andre Durys, and you saw these Canadian college players, and, you know, the skill position, ball handlers. This is awesome, because the more players you have as identifiable players that actually carry the football, catch the football, the Schmod Chambers, who can make catches and make plays, those are the type of guys I find entertaining, because they're Canadian athletes. So good for Toronto.
Good shout out to Shimad. He's sitting over there.
Is he back there?
Oh, yeah, there he is.
You know, and the nice thing about this, roster-wise, you get a kid who can maybe play tailback for you down the road, too. He's got the skills to play. He can make you miss. He can certainly be a punt returner or a kick returner for you. But, you know, you've got the ability of all of a sudden changing the ratio down the road, because you've got 2 guys between Drury and him.
Now, what does it say about Chad Tackert?
Okay. Well, again, Chad's tremendous, but eventually if you can get guys who can play at the same level or just a slight, just not as good, you'd certainly start a Canadian over a non-import over an import.
Well, they have 2 Canadians now that could be running backs. I think Andre Dury is a running back.
Sure. For Coombs, he's got to be more durable, because his durability, he's never finished a full season in Manitoba. But I'll tell you, I saw this kid play live a couple of years ago, and he caught the ball as well as anyone on that football team, as well as almost anyone in this draft. So he's got great skills. And again, if he needs to be a punt returner, he could easily be a punt returner, too.
A lot of comparisons to Andrew Harris as well, BC Lion, Winnipeg native like Anthony Coombs. Congratulations, young man. You are now a member of the Toronto Argonauts, selected 3rd overall. We're still waiting details on the trade with Edmonton. We think, no, we know. Montreal's on the clock coming up. Jim Pop and the post-Anthony Calvillo era. interesting in Montreal.
Everybody loves bacon. Didn't think it could get any better? We're turning bacon upside down. Introducing Perfect Bacon Bowl, the easy way to make delicious edible bowls out of bacon. Just wrap your favorite cut of bacon around the perfect bacon bowl form and cook in the oven, microwave, or toaster oven too. Perfect Bacon Bowl makes bacon the star of every dish. You can go online to find out more.
Available at retailers everywhere.
Hey, lady, want a quickie?
What? I'd like a quickie.
I got what you need.
New Quickie from Canada Green. You're going to have a new lawn in just a few days. Just use Quickie coated grass seed on your lawn. With our special Smart Coat technology, you'll get quicker growth and more water absorption than other leading brands. And with Quickie Lawn Fertilizer and Quickie Patch, you'll have a perfect lawn in no time. Hey, looking good.
Look, honey, that's the guy who gave me the quickie.
Get your Quickie today. Just ask for it by name, Quickie Grass from Canada Green.
It is going to be so different in Montreal this season. No Anthony Calvillo. Boy, off riding into the sunset, but here's what the Montreal Alouettes have and what they're looking for with the 4th overall selection. One thing about the Montreal Alouettes, guys, and Dwayne, you know this, is they go off the board a little bit with their selections. Do you anticipate that this time?
I don't think it's going to be a huge shock. Nothing's going to be a huge shock in this draft because it's something of a unique class where every team is going to be drastically different in terms of the guys that they're looking at. I think one thing when you look at the Montreal Alouettes and you look at what they have and what they need as a football team at this point, Rod, you mentioned the post-Anthony Calvillo era. From a Canadian point of view, this is the post-Scott Flory, post-Andrew Woodruff era. Their Canadian depth on the offensive line, which has always been a strength for this team, has been hit a little bit over the course of the last year or so.
Yeah, and some of those younger guys had to step in, like Ryan Bauman, and another guy who was drafted years ago, Christian Matt, has had an opportunity to play a little bit, see if he can be a starter. But certainly, you never go wrong taking offensive linemen. I still think there's some good guys on the board, Schultze.
They do a great job. They do, and I think it was evident with Mike Edom when he came in and he played as well as he did from the safety position, because as much as that is physical, it is cerebral too. And for that young man to be that successful at that age, that's identifying talent. I think that's a great example of recognition of a guy's Canadian college ability and then transferring it into the CFL and making it successful.
Could there be a possibility that this player selected here may not have to go too far? Could it be a Montreal Caravan?
Well, there is that possibility, and there are a couple of guys that fit for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the number one, as we talk about the offensive line, is David Foucault, big offensive tackle, 6'7", 320 pounds. You look down the road, Jeff Parrott, Josh Burke, 2 Canadian tackles on that team as they play the 5 across the board. To bring a young guy in at that position who would be the next in line, I think would certainly be a fit.
Just want to break in for a moment, guys. Kevin Glenn, we just talked about it. He has been traded to the BC Lions. We're going to get that. We're still trying to get details on the other trade, the Edmonton-Toronto. We have the Edmonton-Toronto trade. This is like watching an election. So this is what the Eskimos and Argos completed. You can see the first-round picks that were traded, 3 and 6, and also Tony Washington, offensive lineman, is going to the Edmonton Eskimos. Also a second-round pick, couple second-round picks that were made. And again, all because Toronto wanted Anthony Coombs. Again, BC has acquired Kevin Glenn. They have not. Oh, there's confusion now.
You know, a good point about going back to that.
We're going to get back to that trade in just a moment.
Yeah, going back to, you know, you see a jockey with Edmonton, Toronto, and a player getting traded to Edmonton. Okay, that's because Chris Jones used to be in Toronto. Okay, they have a familiarity with those players. They have some depth at the offensive line. So now they say, hey, who do you want off of our team, Chris? And now Chris can take a look and say, I really want Tony Washington on my football team. And again, Toronto gets to get a trade to move some people. But the jockeying of coaches moving to other places has also got some players to be able to move to other spots too, guys.
Well, I think Chris Jones has done a magnificent job of kind of picking and choosing and taking a lot of Argonaut coaches and now Argonaut players off that roster, and it's going to make a difference for that team because Tony Washington's pretty good.
Yeah,
he's
Coach
an established.
McAdoo coached him. You know, and it was his, now he's the offensive coordinator. He was his offensive line coach.
He's an established player. He can play for 18 games. He can stay healthy. Chris Jones is slowly but surely turning that organization around.
We hear a bunch of trades going on right now, and we said that Kevin Glenn was traded, but we're not sure exactly if that is the case right now. BC Lions, Wally Buono waiting there, Mike Benavides. Lions War Room will try to clarify what's going on. Deals happening aplenty here on draft day.
Molson Canadian 67 believes that less can mean more. It's why we're all for less style and more substance. Less overtime dinners, more overtime winners, less highways, more fairways, less hesitation, more experimentation, less 9 and more 5. Molson Canadian 67. More of what you want, less of what you don't.
It was tested and pushed to the limits at the legendary Nürburgring. It arrives with a standard H-Track intelligent all-wheel drive system. Its platform uses our own advanced high-strength steel to maximize stability and responsiveness.
Was bedeutet das?
Ärger. Introducing the all-new 2015 Genesis, created by Hyundai.
All right, welcome back. Breaking news. Sorry, Kevin Glenn, we told you were traded, then we told you weren't traded, but guess what? You've been traded. And it was the BC Lions
with the Ottawa Red Blacks. So Ottawa will take BC's
5th pick. That's coming up after Montreal's pick for Kevin Glenn. Chris Schultz, you just said it well during the commercial break.
Yeah, it was really good, wasn't I?
Kevin Glenn is one of the most articulate, great guys in the CFL. He has been bounced around so many different times.
You know, it's really unbelievable when you think about it. He should be a starter. He isn't a starter. The public wants him as a starter. The coaches don't want him as a starter. He goes in, performs. He's gone through every single scenario. Now he's starting all over again in terms of the BC Lions. But it's not a bad situation to be in, Dwayne. I mean, you got a talented team that's going to be hungry because they didn't make it to the Grey Cup and they had the opportunity at home. And he's behind Travis Lulay. Who knows if Travis Lulay is 100% healthy? So Kevin Glenn gets to rejuvenate his career again. I don't know if that's exactly what he wants to do.
All he wants to do is start.
Yeah, just start.
Can you just give me the ball? I want to start.
He's got a shot in BC, though. You never know.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, you know, Travis is just starting to throw in minicamp.
That's right.
They've got some concerns. So, you know, Stephen Giles didn't pan out as a more veteran quarterback, so they don't have a lot of experience behind the starters. So, you know, I certainly don't want to give up non-import picks for imports, but at the quarterback position, sometimes you have to do that to be secure.
We can also tell you now that Montreal is on the clock, but they apparently have flipped picks with Ottawa after Ottawa made that deal to go to number 5. So Ottawa will select 4th. Montreal will slip to 5th right now. So the Red Blacks give up number 1, and they're still going to pick 4th overall here, Schultz.
And they're going to pick 4th overall. They're going to get a young talent, and they also got some veteran talent. Not a bad job at all by Marcelo, I would say. You got 2 players in the 1st round. When you think about it, one that is established, that can play 18 games, one that is young, that could be on his way.
And there's some good offensive linemen here that they may be able to take right here.
Well, there's still some guys, and there have been some talk about the possibility of Foucault being the 1st overall pick to Ottawa. Now they possibly have a chance to get him as 4. A guy that compares to the Ottawa Renegades' 1st ever pick, Alexandre Gauthier, big offensive tackle, a guy that can play that offensive tackle spot as a non-import. So there could be some similarity there. But I'll tell you the one thing to me, guys, is like 2 very marketable trade chips here in the 1st overall pick and a quarterback in Kevin Glenn. I think I would have held on to Glenn until somebody was a little bit desperate during the season, if a quarterback got hurt or was underperforming, where I think the price is a little bit higher. Whereas they're getting a 1st round pick and they're getting John Gott. But those, to me, again, are 2 very valuable trade chips. I'm not sure the value is maximized there.
Well, it certainly shows the value of having veteran quarterbacks in your stable because they can either help you win games or you can trade them for other things.
And you need two quarterbacks, guys. I mean, statistically, you're lucky if your first quarterback plays every single game. The majority of the time, your backup quarterback is going to be a starter at some point in the season. And if you do not have somebody who's established, if you do not have somebody that's proficient, if you don't have somebody that's professional, you're not going to win those critical games. And one or two games that the backup quarterback can win is the difference between home field advantage in first place and second or third place in the West or the East.
Clearly some dominoes had to fall here for this to happen, for Kevin Glenn deal to happen, so then that Ottawa and Montreal traded. So here, let's tell you about this deal between Montreal and Ottawa. Again, the first-round picks, also second-round picks that were swapped as well. And so Montreal will select 5th overall. And right now, the Ottawa Red Blacks will have their first draft pick, and they have selected, Marcel Desjardins and company have selected Antoine Pruneau from the Montreal Carabins, defensive back. You like this kid?
I sure do. I had him right up there alongside Anthony Coons as the best non-lineman in this draft. This is a kid who has been an all-star in the Quebec Conference the last 3 seasons at a different position each season. Very versatile to me. He fits the mold of a guy like Craig Butler, a guy like Mike Edom, that free safety who has some versatility. You can put him in coverage, you can put him in your blitz package. You can ask him to do a lot of things. Very high football IQ, underrated athleticism. This is one of those guys who, to me, has an opportunity to play early. And, you know, I may have questioned what they got in the trade, but as if this is the guy that they talked about first overall, then they're getting the guy that they want, and they're getting him at 4th and getting other assets as well.
Let's get some further information on Antoine Pruneau and this selection by the Ottawa Red Blacks. And Lee.
Thanks, Rod. Antoine Pruneau has really climbed up the draft board since the combine, and this might be the deepest position in the draft, defensive back. There might be 4 or 5 guys who can play in this league in the backfield, and Pruneau, one thing that really separates him is his versatility, playing potentially safety, corner. He can do a lot of things.
Yeah, and to that versatility, when he was playing for the Carabins last season, a little bit of injuries in the defensive backfield. They put him out to weak corner to shut down Sherbrooke's best receiver, who's an underclassman. We'll hear about him next year. But and then, you know, he played Sam. He didn't play free safety, which might be the position he will play in the CFL, because they got a pretty good one in Anthony Cody. But Pruneau, a guy who's tested well. People didn't like how he looked when he did the 40-yard, but it was very effective. And that's what he is. He's an effective player.
Yeah, and, you know, he's been compared to players like Diamond Ferry. They talk about his ability to blitz off the edge and just his versatility. But, you know, he seems to be a perfect fit in that situation.
Yeah, and he's been coached by Noel Thorpe for a couple years, Danny Machocha, some great coaches that have exposed him to the systems that he'll be playing at the next level.
And, Rod, before we go to break, Quinn Smith, a guy that we talked about somewhere in the top 3, still on the board.
Indeed, Quinn Smith might be selected in this first round, maybe the next few picks. The Alouettes are back on the clock after that trade with the Ottawa Red Blacks. We've had 4 selections so far. Shea Emery is no longer a member of the Alouettes. They, too, have some holes to fill. We'll find out what they do when we come back with the CFL Draft.
We believe that communities are built one field at a time. That's why we're committed to building better places to play across Canada. Nominate your project at craftcelebrationtour.ca for a chance to win $100,000 and a live Sports Center broadcast for your community. Together, we can help communities build a better tomorrow by helping build better places to play today. Maxwell House, Canada's #1 homebrewed cup of can-do.
With more features in the Toyota RAV4, you have more ways to play.
You also have more convenience and technology, more space and versatility,
More style, more control, and more reasons to take the long way home. Now during Toyota Red Tag Days, it's the perfect time to experience the 2014 RAV4.
We just saw that Antoine Pruneau was selected 4th overall in Montreal Carabins, while another member of the Carabins has now been selected. The Montreal Alouettes have taken from the Université de Montréal David Foucault, offensive lineman, with the 5th overall selection.
Yeah, and a little bit different than the other offensive linemen we've seen taken in the first part of this draft, Rod, where we talk about Pierre Lavertu and Matthias Gosset being guys who could step in and play right away. not necessarily the case with Foucault, but this is a guy who projects to have a big upside. 6'7", 320 pounds, very athletic, topped the offensive line in terms of a lot of the movement and explosion tests. It's going to take him a little bit of time to develop, as Schultz could tell you playing out on that island as an offensive tackle. It's not easy. But for Foucault, if he's able to realize that potential, it'll be significant. The one hitch with him, a free agent tryout with the Carolina Panthers. He's been invited to their minicamp, doesn't have a contract, doesn't necessarily seem like a huge risk, but that's what they said about Lyndon Gadosh before he ended up getting a deal last year.
It is always a risk anytime the player that you want on your football team has other options in terms of playing on another football team. Remember, too, that he will go through that training camp. He will have those reps, and that will make him a better football player. So it's an investment for the future. Montreal does it again. They take care of protecting their quarterback, because what are the keys in football? You get to the quarterback, you protect the quarterback, you're going to have some level of success.
And certainly guys have to move inside to start, but I think he has to get stronger. He plays high at times and lets defenders underneath him. But I think with time, he's got the ability to step in and they can go back to starting 5 Canadians up front.
So already 5 selections, 3 offensive linemen, including David Foucault from the University of Montreal, who did not have to go far. He is now a Montreal Alouette. So Edmonton, you are now on the clock. The Edmonton Eskimos with the 6th selection.
They were supposed to pick number 3, but again made the trade with the Toronto Argonauts. What do you think here, Dwayne?
Well, as we talked about them when we thought they were going to pick at number 3, this is a team that's still in a situation of looking to add to their overall Canadian depth. We've heard Ed Hervey, their general manager, over the course of the last couple of years, talk about wanting this team to get a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, a little bit nastier, whether that means a defensive lineman from the top guys, Quinn Smith, Evan Gill at defensive tackle. Another big physical guy could be a receiver like Devin Bailey. So we'll see which way Edmonton goes, but that seems to be the theme with their club.
Well, you look at last year. Remember Stephon Charles? We were at the camp last year, and we watched Stephon Charles, and we said, that's the guy. That's the guy that Edmonton should take, or anybody in the CFL should take. Unfortunately, that guy is not available to the Edmonton Eskimos. Ted Laurent, what is his status and what is his future? So if there's an opportunity to get a good Canadian defensive lineman, go for it. Because when you have that one player that can play on the interior or the perimeter and be a Canadian talent and make plays, that changes your ratio remarkably effectively. Stephon Charles, you don't know how long he will spend in the NFL. Ted Laurent, you don't know how long he will be where he is deciding to be in life. But if you can find another one to replace him, that puts pressure on those 2 other players.
Yeah, right now with Ted Laurent gone, it's Donnie Ramey's and Eddie Steele are the 2 Canadian defensive tackles. So I think overall Canadian depth, they'd like to try to get somebody who can really step in and help compete at those spots somewhere on the defense.
New era in Edmonton with Chris Jones there too, in many ways, and defensively what that brings.
You know, Chris Jones is a risk-reward guy. He's going to go after your quarterback. He's going to find the athletes that can close on your quarterback as quickly as you can. And he's going to roll the dice a little bit. He's got to have a more effective offensive line. Whatever happened between Chris Sweet and the players on that team, Chris Sweet's a good football coach, but for whatever reason, it didn't mix. So that is now been developed into a new scenario, but Chris Jones will have an aggressive team.
We've got a couple of guests in the studio with Ricky Foley here, just kind of chilling out with us, and Shamad Chambers. Shamad, you've got a new running mate in Edmonton now. The Edmonton Eskimos, with the 6th overall pick, have taken wide receiver Devin Bailey from St. FX.
Devin Bailey, big receiver, 6'3". Bailey, little over 200 pounds. And the thing you'll see as you watch him do one-on-ones at the combine, this guy loves contact. A physical player. His route running needs some work, needs to be refined, so he's going to need a veteran like Shamad Chambers to help him a little bit with that. But that's going to come over time. He didn't necessarily have to be a great route runner in college, but I think playing at a higher level is going to force him to develop that part of his game. But he's a guy, he'll go up and get the football. As I said, he'll be physical. He likes to use his size. He's special teams right now, guys.
Yeah, watching him on the video, like from 2009, I saw some early film of him in 2009, and he did a great job of just, like you say, Dwayne, he didn't have great routes. He just out-jumped people for the football. And he's really honed his skills. He's a lot better. He's got a long way to go to be technically sound in the Canadian Football League. But again, they picked up Akeem Foster in the offseason, didn't they? So they've got, with Shamad, they got a nice receiving core, Nathan Cohorn. So they're building the Canadian talent to maybe start, make sure they've got two 2 starters, and you always have to have good backups if you start 2 Canadian receivers.
Somebody to catch those Mike Riley passes in Edmonton. Coming up, the Calgary Stampeders with their 2nd selection in the 1st round. They already selected Pierre Lavertu, number 1 overall. There's John Huffnagel.
Calgary are back on the clock. The 2014 CFL Draft.
Stil.
C'est mon style.
No matter how you say it, steel makes yard work quick and easy.
With blowers starting at $179.95, grass trimmers $139.95, and chainsaws $199.95. Not at Home Depot, not at Canadian Tire. Visit your local steel dealer for expert advice, on-site service, and Canada's #1 selling brand of outdoor power equipment.
Find yours at steel.ca.
Welcome back to our coverage of the fast-running roller coaster ride called the CFL Canadian Draft. Pierre Lavertu, of course, was the #1 overall selection. The center earlier taken by the Calgary Stampeders. And guess what? The Calgary Stampeders have the pick now as well. It's 7th overall, and they have selected defensive lineman from Concordia University, Quinn Smith. Wayne Ford.
Quinn Smith, a talented guy, went into the CFL Combine, rated by most people as a likely 2nd-round pick. An outstanding performance at the Combine boosted his stock, but unfortunately that was negated last week when it came out that he had a positive drug test at the Combine. But the bottom line for me remains, Quinn Smith is a talented guy. He's an athletic guy at 300 pounds. When you look at sort of what he is physically in terms of size, in terms of his physical testing skills and so on, Quinn Smith is a guy that you hope, if he reaches his upside, becomes a guy a lot like Keith Sholigan. That's the physical comparable you're looking at, Rob.
I think the #1 thing is you have all these evaluations physically on what a player can do, the 40 time, the bench press, all those numbers. When you dominate one-on-one, you're the defensive lineman, and you beat that offensive guard or that offensive tackle, that raises eyes. You can have all the numbers you want, but this still is the game played in pads, and it's played on the line of scrimmage. That's where he made his mark, and that's why he's a 1st-round draft pick.
Yeah, he had great numbers for a 300-pounder, and then when you put on the video, yeah, you put the video on. This kid dents the pocket. He uses his hands well. I think he's going to be able to slide in to be a nose guard and possibly start.
First D lineman taken in this draft. Well, you know, remember when Hamilton and Saskatchewan met in the Grey Cup, and well, they've been busy in the offseason too. Hamilton was supposed to select
with this pick originally, then made a trade with Saskatchewan recently for Josh Bartel and Shamari Williams. And guess what?
Hamilton and Saskatchewan have swapped these picks again. So Hamilton goes back into the 8th slot, with Saskatchewan slipping to 9th again after all of those trades. And so the Hamilton Tiger Cats are on the clock.
Yeah, and this is a team that when you look over the course of the last couple of years, since the arrival of Kent Austin, they've done a very good job in terms of trying to build their overall Canadian depth. I think Kent is a guy who's got a terrific handle on this, and obviously has targeted someone that he wants.
That he's looking to just move up a couple of spots to get back a pick that was originally his. Peter Diakowski, don't know how healthy he is.
He does have a bad knee. Peter will play football if he's physically able to play football, but you do need insurance policies across your offensive front. They may be taking the next best offensive lineman available. There are other players in other skill positions, but sometimes you have to take a player in anticipation of the unknown of the durability of another player.
Yeah, they've done a great job in stocking. They've got a lot of depth at the O-line. They have an understanding of it's important to have a lot of Canadians on your roster.
Got Zach Alaris in the offseason as well, so a new era for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, a new stadium coming as well, so an interesting time.
Coming off a trip to the Grey Cup last season.
A trip to the Grey Cup. Now, they were dominated in the Grey Cup. There's no doubt about that. There's no excuse about that. But the strides they took, and thinking the number of games at University of Guelph, they did a wonderful thing. They did a great job in terms of trying to create a home field advantage. It wasn't a home field for the Hamilton Ticats. As much as you try to do that, you're still traveling to another avenue. They went through a ton of adversity. They went through some unique injuries. Hamilton will be a better team this year than they are at the end of last year. That Grey Cup, it will set them up for success in the 2014 season.
Kent Austin and company on the clock right now. And again, let's go through what we've gone through in the last 45
Rob, this
minutes.
is like the SATs when they tell you 2 trains going in one direction and you're trying to figure out.
Love this stuff.
Like class.
Yeah, Pierre Lavertu is a member of the Calgary Stampeders, selected #1 overall. First center taken since Chad Folk back in '97. The Blue Bombers. Matthias Gosen goes #2, another O-lineman. Anthony Coombs, University of Manitoba, one of the highest ever selected Bisons to the Toronto Argonauts. Antoine
Pruneau to the Ottawa Red Blacks. Montreal gets David Foucault. Edmonton
gets Devin Bailey. And the Calgary Stampeders, Quinn Smith. And we're waiting for Hamilton via Saskatchewan via Hamilton trade. This pick coming up for Hamilton. Let's go over to Farhan and Lee.
They brought a number of outstanding players still on the board, and when you look at Hamilton and how they've made their roster as far as their Canadians playing, especially on the defensive side of the ball, defensive back might be a pretty good pick for the Ticats, and there's a pretty good one on the board right now.
Yeah, great one on the board right now. Andrew Liu out of Queen's University.
Played his high school ball at Brother Andre, had a great two-way tape out of high school, both receiver and DB. He's a guy that's played from day one at Queen's. He's a weak corner, played weak corner his whole career, and has been an All-Canadian a couple times, OUA All-Star the last 3 years. Great athlete, would be a great pick.
A couple of good defensive linemen also available, Dylan Ainsworth and Evan Gill. Now, there's been plenty of discussion about Evan Gill in the last couple of days and what his status is as far as next year is concerned. Now, he had hoped to also be available for the NFL draft, but he's not eligible until next season. He's also